Welcome, everyone, to the MDM Show. I am your co-host, Donna Whittington. Of course, my illustrious host, Peter Schenk. Well, tonight we have a great friend of ours, and we like to have new friends. And guess what? We're bringing one on the show tonight. We've got Ken Rohla. Ken is a natural health educator, researcher, and inventor from New Smyrna Beach, Florida. He offers cutting-edge products and services for regaining, optimizing health naturally using ancient wisdom and cutting-edge science. He can be contacted at www.freshandalive.com. I'm going to bring up Ken, and of course, before we do that, got to say hello to Peter. Hey, Peter, how are you?
Anna, how's it going? So tonight we got a really, really cool show lined up, and Ken's going to be talking about a lot of different things, his modalities and technology that he has designed over the years, but I've played with a lot of technology out there that claim to do some things, and I have first-hand experience with something very, very cool, which we'll show you a little bit later. And I'm going to tell my story behind what happened to me when I used it, and it's very, very mind-blowing, and I don't get impressed easily by anything that's out there because I've always remained true to what I create and take information that I get from my sources, making what I create more pure. But I was very impressed with this, and I don't endorse anybody's products, but this one is really, really cool. So Ken, we had a great conversation the other day. Over to you, my friend.
Okay, well, you want me to tell a little bit about myself first?
Start there, yes.
Okay. I won't go into too much because people really probably rather hear about other things I've done rather than about my history. But I've been teaching natural healing for about 24 years now, and when I started, actually it was really, I had healed myself, and I was working in the medical system, worked in hospitals, I worked in various positions in hospitals, worked in emergency rooms, worked in administration, and then worked at the North Carolina Hospital Association for 10 years. And so I saw the medical system up close, from the patient level on up to the national policy level, working with politicians, Congress people, state, local, and national politicians. And so I saw, how the medical system worked, and I saw how it failed miserably with degenerative illness. And, I was born sick. Really, probably everybody in my family was, and most people I think these days are to some degree. But I had blood sugar problems. I had a lot of health problems. And by the time I reached my early 30s, it was wreaking havoc in my life. I was kind of like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, depending on what I ate, how much I ate, and how much sleep I got, those kinds of things. And so working within the medical system, I went to my wellness, quote, wellness program to find out, what they could do to help me. And basically, whatever kind of doctor I went to said that what I needed was what he had. And so, a psychiatrist said I needed medication for the rest of my life, and other types of doctors would say I needed their medication for the rest of my life. And ultimately, I wound up healing myself with living food and detoxification. And so, I learned a lot in that process over many years, spent a ton of money, wasted a lot of money, and, had to sort through fact and fiction with all the different things that are out there. And so I was, healed myself up, was doing fine, and quit my job in the medical system and became a potter and was doing that for a few years. And that brought me to Florida from North Carolina. And when I moved to Florida and I started making friends, people would come over to our house and they would want to know why, we didn't have a television. And when we opened the refrigerator up to get them a drink, it was full of produce and hardly any processed food, and no boxes or cans or junk. And they couldn't answer, especially in the Daytona Beach, Florida area. I mean, this is a very conservative area, you might say, and so it blew people's minds. They're like, "What?" And
you don't eat wrap burgers from McDonald's?
No, but I used to love McDonald's double cheeseburgers, man. And I had the relief at the drive-through burned into my memory. So I used to eat there a lot. But yeah, when I discovered all this natural health stuff, it involved changing my diet and lifestyle. And so we're eating like 90% raw vegan and juicing and doing wheatgrass and all this kind of stuff. And it blew people's minds when they would come up to our house and see what we were doing, because I just offer them a drink, and we'd have juice or whatever, and even our water wasn't normal. It was magic water, kind of like the stuff you work with. We had done things to our water to make it beyond just regular water, and so I got tired of people coming over and starting to ask questions, and then 2-3 hours later I'm finishing the conversation because they keep asking more and more questions. And so I was complaining to a friend, and he said, well, you ought to do a workshop for your friends, and that way you'll get them off your back. And so I thought, well, great. So I did a whole day workshop. I had all my friends over, it was about 20 people. Spent the whole day with them, showed them how to do the food, the lifestyle, took them to the health food store, showed them what was really healthy at the health food store and what wasn't. And they went home, and I thought, great, now they'll leave me alone. And they went and told people, and so very quickly I had to do another one, and that one was bigger, and they went and told people, and it just kept growing and growing exponentially. And then 9/11 happened. I was making pottery for a living at that point. I had quit my high-tech, high-paid computer job and was making pottery for a living. And so when 9/11 hit, pottery business tanked, and this live food stuff was just easy. It was falling in my lap. So I figured, well, I'll give this a shot. And so that was how I got into it. I learned early out of school that if you want to be good at something, go and study with the best that you can. And so I wound up finding people around the world who were healing incurable diseases, major life-threatening illnesses, and I studied with them, and I learned their techniques and saw the commonalities in them. But because I had this background in electrical engineering, I was seeing things in it that they weren't seeing, particularly in physics and chemistry and the biology of things. I had been a student of quantum physics, since I was very young, and so I just saw all this stuff in it that other people didn't see, and so I started to take it beyond what most of these healers were doing with it. So that's kind of how I got into it in a nutshell.
So go over some of the products that you've developed over the years, because in a minute I'm going to want to talk about this. And this is very, very cool.
Well, I was my focus had been for 20 years on healing with nature, using food, using herbs and supplements, food-based supplements and things to heal the body and regenerate cells, and then also emotional healing and reprogramming the unconscious mind using techniques like meditation or emotional healing techniques of various kinds. And so I was not at all into using technology, even though my background is in technology. I was not interested in using technology for healing or optimizing health. But then I was studying actually a bunch of different scientists' work, including Tesla and George Lakhovsky's multi-wave oscillator and various technologies that were used for healing, Royal Rife's technology. And I started seeing how to build these circuits to create what Tesla called a personal oscillator. So I wound up developing this little handheld device I call it a stress shield that you carry with you, and it puts out a field about 15-foot radius that will de-stress you and get you into deep sleep and protect against EMF and those kinds of things, stop jet lag and various things. So I had that technology, I was making it and selling it, and it worked beyond my wildest dreams. It was really amazing. And so, I kind of had that in my background and in my toolbox. And then when the Fukushima nuclear disaster occurred, first thing I thought was, I wonder if somebody used a scalar energy weapon to create that earthquake, because Tesla had developed earthquake weapons using scalar waves, or also known as torsion waves or other names for it. And so I Googled Fukushima scalar weapon, and one of the first things that came up was the Minister of Finance of Japan being interviewed by the former editor-in-chief of Forbes China. And the Minister of Finance was saying that, in fact, Fukushima was caused by an earthquake weapon that the United States used against them, and that it wasn't the first time, it was actually the third time that it had been used against them to attempt to blackmail them into economic policies against China to keep the Chinese yen from becoming the world's reserve currency rather than the US dollar. And for those who don't know what the reserve currency is, that is the currency that countries use to do business amongst each other. And the dollar has been the world's reserve currency for like 40 years or so. And so maybe more. So the United States really doesn't want that to go away, because we can just print up money and go buy things from other countries like oil, whereas other countries have to take their local currencies and buy dollars to go buy other things from other countries. And so, you know, we just make up monopoly money and go buy stuff. So if the dollar no longer is the world's reserve currency, then we're in a world of hurt, financially speaking. So the United States has been doing all this battling behind the scenes to keep the dollar the world's reserve currency, while China and Russia and this alliance of nations called the BRICS Alliance is working towards a new economic system where the yen, the Chinese yen, is the world's reserve currency. So here it is, you know, on YouTube, this guy, Minister of Finance of Japan, saying that the U.S. used these scalar weapons. So I got thinking, well, you know, if they can use scalar weapons to cause damage, I wonder if anybody's using scalar energy devices to neutralize radioactivity. And so I started looking around. And in fact, I found that there were 61 patents for methods for neutralizing completely or partially radioactivity, and 8 of them in Japan. So we have technologies to neutralize radioactivity. And if you want to see those 61 patents, by the way, you can go to my website. If you go to radiationlinks.freshandalive.com, you can see those 61 patents with the patent numbers worldwide. So I'm seeing this and realizing, and I had also been a bad boy back in the early 90s. I had worked with free energy technology and worked with a man named Yul Brown, who had developed water fuel technology, and that water fuel technology also could neutralize radioactivity. So I knew for a fact that it could neutralize radioactivity because I had seen it done in front of a whole slew of engineers and physicists and Department of Energy officials. So I knew that, you know, it was possible to neutralize radioactivity. I didn't realize there were 61 patents for doing it. And so I started looking around. I knew that fallout from Fukushima, I knew it was going to be bad because I had already helped victims from Chernobyl heal themselves, and I knew from studying that how much of that radiation went around the world and caused millions of deaths and lots of disease, and so including in the United States. And so I knew what was coming, so I started looking to see if anybody was using any type of scalar device to neutralize the radioactivity, and I actually found that there were people clearing the skies of chemtrail pollutants with these things called cloudbusters, and I recognized the physics of what was going on, and I said, well, my God, I've got a powered scalar wave generator technology that could be way stronger than that. It'd blow the doors off of that. And so I spent about 1.5 years experimenting around and wound up developing a device that could clear a 75-mile radius of fallout, and not only fallout, but geoengineering pollution and any kind of pollution, and it wouldn't drop it back down on us. It would send it out into space, and then you get not only clean atmosphere and no nuclear fallout coming down on you, but you also get balanced normal weather for your area.
So Ken, that is, I mean, that's really cool stuff, but where does that information come from? How do you obtain it?
Well, the truth is, and I've discovered this with pretty much every scientist or inventor that I've come across who's doing something amazing, typically, it's coming from a combination of being guided from within, being guided, quite honestly, by extraterrestrials. I've had ET contact, physical and non-physical, and I've also met a lot of scientists and inventors who also have had ET contact, and they're getting these downloads either in person or through the dream state, or just, you know, through the third eye. to get these solutions. So it's kind of like my whole life I've just been interested in learning, and my interest lied in physics and geeky stuff, building things and blowing things up and burning things and that kind of stuff. And so, getting a degree in that seemed like the logical thing to do. So I had the technical background to kind of start with, but then my whole life I've been having these contacts and downloads, and then bumping into other people who have pieces of the puzzle, and then studying people's technologies like Tesla who have pieces of the puzzle. So it's a combination of getting all this different information from different sources, and then kind of gelling it into, seeing what it can be done with it, and then, doing something with it, making something with it.
So, give us an example of the wildest download you've ever had and how it came to you. I'm very interested in this because
here's a great one. This is one I teach all the time, but people don't know where I got it. It's kind of funny, but when I was working in the corporate world, and I was an IT manager running a data center, and we were kind of down in the basement of this building in this IT facility, and for some reason the toilet out in the hallway was like this vortex for downloads. Man, I would go in there
back to the toilet.
Yeah, I mean it was hilarious. I'd go in this toilet and get the greatest ideas and downloads. It's like, oh my God, I loved spending time in that bathroom, because it was.
All right, let's move along.
So I got a lot of downloads, but the one download that I got that kind of qualifies for what you're asking is I was sitting there and I was thinking about these screensavers that we had back in the day on our computers that would draw these fractals on the screen to fill it up, to keep the screen image from burning in. And I was thinking about that fractal drawing, and I realized, like, wow, that's a metaphor for how the universe is constructed. That's how the universe is constructed energetically. This energy is flowing, and I don't know how I knew that or how I got that, but it turns out now that, of course, that's been proven in physics, that we are living in a geometric universe and that energy does flow throughout the cosmos in these fractal patterns, these recurring fractal patterns. So that was an interesting download I got in the toilet. That's probably one of the more interesting ones. And that's not, I would say, actually not the most interesting one. The most interesting one to me was actually being in visual contact with extraterrestrials and having them give me downloads in.
Right,
that was scary, actually. It was not just interesting, it was scary.
Share that with us.
Well, I had been, in my early 20s, I got turned on to this book called Seth Speaks, and it was this channeled material, and it was a lot of really interesting stuff in it, but when I was reading the book, it was like getting hit by lightning, because there were all of these things here in writing that I had believed my whole life that nobody else around me believed, like you create your reality. And there it was in print, and I was like, oh my God, I couldn't put the book down. I stayed up all night reading it. And so that was like the beginning of considering that maybe this information and stuff coming to me all the time, maybe it's coming from somewhere else. Maybe it's not just coming, maybe it's not just me. And so I started talking when I would get these voices and images and things giving me information. I would start talking to it and saying, who is this? And ultimately they identified themselves as extraterrestrials. And so, I started talking to these voices, which sounds completely, schizophrenic. And so I said, well, if I'm not just crazy, and I'm not, if I'm not just talking to myself and I'm crazy, then I've got to meet you in person. And for years they said, no, we can't do that because it would traumatize you too much. Your DNA has been programmed to fear us. They did expose that they were reptilian extraterrestrials, and they said that we had been engineered to fear them. And so I kept working on them, and for a few years they just kept goofing around and ignoring it and denying it. But ultimately I was at a party on a farm, and this was in North Carolina, out in the country, and there's a long story behind it, but long story short, these people wanted to dig out a spring and have a little swimming hole, and so they started having these channeling parties where this lady named Barbara Marciniak would come and channel all this ET stuff. and they would party and dig out the spring and have a good old time. Well, and they would do this for a whole weekend. They do it a couple times a year. So this spring got dug out, and they had to do something with the mud, and so they decided to pile it up next to where they were digging, and ultimately they wound up piling it up. These were a bunch of hippies basically, so somebody got the bright idea of making a serpent mound like the Native Americans do. And so they kept piling up the dirt into this mound, and ultimately it wound up, after a few years, it became about 65 feet long and about 3 feet high and about 4 feet wide. And all these people just intuitively they were coming from all over the world and bringing in crystals and rocks and artifacts from various places and embedding them in this serpent mound. And so now, you know, looking back on it, I realized what they were doing just intuitively was creating a gigantic piece of organite, which can create a scalar wave vortex on the Earth, which can have a lot of benefits to the area, kind of like a pyramid.
So, can you explain what scalar waves are?
Yeah, scalar waves, also known as torsion waves, also known as chi or prana or orgone or a slew of other names. It's really what it is tachyon energy is another name, life force. It's really God consciousness. It's this faster than light energy that scientists are seeing now coming from the centers of galaxies, and it spirals outward. It always flows in spirals, and it branches as it goes. So it's spiraling and fractaling as it comes out of the center of the galaxy, and it's going way beyond what we're told is the speed of light. Although it is light energy, it's photonic energy. So it's light traveling faster than what we've been told is the speed of light, and it's going so fast, and the wavelengths are so small, it's not conventional three-dimensional electromagnetic energy. It's more multidimensional light energy, and it slows down and coagulates into the matter and energy that we see and can measure. And so it's kind of like the Force in Star Wars. It's this fabric of the universe, this energetic fabric that's flowing through everything. You know, if you look at atoms, they're composed of these particle waves that are mostly space. You know, if you take, for example, a hydrogen atom and you blow it up to the size of a football field, the nucleus is about the size of a golf ball, and the electron's about the size of a BB. And so you've got all this space in between, all matter, and that's where this energy flows. It flows through everything like it's not there, and consciousness slows it down and coagulates it into this 3D reality. So that's what scientists are calling scalar waves. You can capture it and do things with it because it not only creates matter and energy, it can alter matter and energy. And in fact, within the body, it does this all the time. This is the way cells regenerate, for example.
So for clarity, you cannot create scalar waves. You can only capture the energy and redirect it via a device?
Correct. What you're really doing is just capturing it from the environment around you and directing it. You can concentrate it or strengthen it. So that's what my circuits do. They capture it and strengthen it. But you can build devices like pyramids that do the same thing. So yeah, depending on the device or software, in the case of your device, your technology, software can do it because, I mean, if you think about what a computer is just a device that takes positive and negative electrical charges and turns it into a virtual reality that you can interact with and do things with. And that virtual reality is really embedded inside of the virtual reality that we live in all the time, that we call 3D reality. And so this scalar energy, as scientists are calling it, or torsion energy, because it can create or modify matter and conventional electromagnetic energy, you can do amazing things with it. From healing to, for example, having a cell phone that has perfect reception anywhere in the cosmos. Because this energy is not traveling through space, it's really kind of like immersed through all dimensions of time and space, and it just pops up wherever you need it.
Wow.
So there's a quantum principle behind it then?
Oh, absolutely.
Can you explain that?
Well, it's just that, like I said, it's flowing. It's kind of like when you've got water in a pipe. The whole 3D universe and also other frequencies of time and space have this energy embedded throughout it. And you can think of it kind of like water in a pipe. If you put water in a pipe and you put a plunger in one end, it's going to push out the other end. And it doesn't matter if that pipe is 2 miles long. If you push the plunger in one end, that water is going to come out the other end immediately. And so that's kind of how this energy works. It's embedded throughout matter and non-physical reality, and we can manipulate it, and it just shows up somewhere simultaneously, or it has an effect somewhere simultaneously.
So I want to share with the listeners tonight a really cool device, and this is an invention from Ken's company, and this is called the Rest Shield. Can you explain quickly, Ken, what it does, and then I'm going to tell people what it really does.
Okay. It's a powered scalar wave generator. So what it does is it has a circuit in that base in the box that generates scalar waves, and then it sends it to an antenna. And that antenna is designed like DNA. It kind of mimics the structure of DNA, and it's wrapped around a large selenite crystal, which has a frequency that promotes sleep. And then that's embedded in a material that has 12 different volcanic mineral powders in it, and 6 different crystals in it, and several different metal powders in it, and all that combined. Just by itself, that would create scalar waves and scalar fields, but when you put a power generator in it, it makes it much stronger.
Do you mean it attracts scalar waves and redirects it, or
Yes.
it creates them?
Well, it's really capturing them from the ambient environment and concentrating them and then manipulating them. So it's really capturing.
I'm just really excited. I want to explain my angle on this. Ken was gracious enough to send me 2 of these devices, and I'm only using one as of now. And I plugged this device in my bedroom, and this office I'm in now is off the bedroom. And I believe the instructions say it goes out about 20 feet or so from it. And for those of you that know me, know that I can see energy and everything. And as soon as I plugged the Rest Shield in, a yellow energy started flowing out of the top. It went into the top of the bedroom and then started pushing out and permutated everything. And I'm just going to say this, it was beyond 20 feet. It was probably closer to 40 feet in a yellow healing type of energy. And I gotta say, man, I don't endorse people's products, but this thing was wild. I immediately felt the difference. I not only sleep better at night, but I plugged it in before I did the EMA show about 2 weeks ago, and I was so spot on during that 2-hour show. It was off the chart, and I know it was because of this. And I've noticed that my cognitive abilities, I'm generally razor sharp. I'm getting a little bit older now, but I'm generally razor sharp, and this device just puts, and this is just me personally, put an edge on that razor that was beyond anything I've experienced. I'm sleeping better, my cognitive abilities are better, and you really realize that when you leave the environment or the cocoon that this device spins up in your environment, that you miss it. It's really, really weird. It's like when you're not in it, you're like, you realize it because you go from being Superman back to being human again. It's like, this sucks. I want to get back in there. That's my experience with it. And again, Ken, kudos to you, man, because I don't endorse people's products, and this thing is off the chart. So can you share with the listeners tonight kind of some of the feedback that you've received since building this beautiful device and where it's going in the future?
Well, we know from testing that it slows brainwave states down, so it gets you into delta and theta and gamma brainwave states when you go to sleep. And these days almost nobody is getting into those deep sleep states because of all the man-made EMF on the planet. There's Wi-Fi everywhere. There's airport radar guns pretty much covering everywhere. There's somewhere between 500 million and a billion times more electromagnetic radiation than human beings are supposed to have, according to Robert O. Becker and Dr. Bob Beck. So that's one thing it does. It puts out this field that will neutralize electromagnetic frequencies, chaotic electromagnetic frequencies. Normally, it's like you can turn a radio on and you can pick up radio. It's because there's radio waves are around us all the time, zipping around kind of chaotically and bouncing off of things and passing through the body. And all this EMF that's bouncing around passes through the body, and it interferes with cellular communication. So when it hits the field of the rest shield, all of those random chaotic waves become parallel to each other. That's known as wave coherence. So when it passes through the body, it's kind of like a stealth plane flying through the air. It's much, much quieter when it passes through the body. So it doesn't interfere with cellular communication as much. So we know that. We know it slows brainwave states down. We just found out one of our customers did some testing with the GDV camera and some other stuff, and he found out that it was actually detoxifying the body. And I didn't know that it did that. I do know that over time it relaxes, because it relaxes all the cells and the glands in the body. It tends to improve the endocrine system, the gland system in the body.
Now, you're not a medical practitioner, so how do you? I always tell people out of the gate, whatever you read on any electronic media, email, blog, whatever. It's their own experience, and in no time, none of the products that I developed have ever been evaluated by the FDA. The programs are games, and if you see some type of positive wink wink effect from it, hey, it's all good. How do you
Exactly.
How does that work with you?
Well, same thing. I don't make any medical claims about it. These days, quite honestly, with the way the FDA regulations are, you can't say anything. You can't even imply a function in the name of a product. So, it's like technically you can't do anything. You can't say it has any kind of a benefit. So I do avoid, obviously making any kind of medical claims, but we do have a lot of people that give us testimonials and tell us, what they've experienced with it. And, it also does things like structuring water. It'll make water more hydrating, which kind of like your Aquaware, except not nearly as sophisticated.
Hey, don't tell people that.
Well, I'll tell you right now, I've used Aquaware, and the rest of you can't touch the Aquaware. It does one thing and one thing only, and Aquaware does about 1 million things. So I'm also a heavy endorser of Aquaware, and I just got it. I've been blown away by it myself.
Describe some of your experiences using Aquaware, please. Just by the way, folks, we have we're going to do a 24-hour sale tonight. It's been going on, but we're going to extend it. Aquaware is 40% off. The coupon code is OFF40, off 40. I'm sorry, Ken, continue.
Let's see. What were you asking me?
Just to go into some of your experiences using Aquaware.
Oh, Aquaware, yeah. Well, just this week. I just got it, 10 days ago maybe. And I've got a friend who was diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 4 breast cancer now, or was. And so I've been working with her just to support it and help her with it. And so before I got the Aquaware, we were actually working, because she was so sick, she wound up going to the hospital. She was in intense pain. She had gone to a natural health clinic that was actually helping, but she was in such intense pain, she had to go to the hospital and get some pain meds. And, of course, when that happens, then you're so drugged up, you pretty much become a zombie. And so then she couldn't eat and drink and do the things she needed to do to physically detox her body. So we started working energetically with her, with a man named Ed Edwards in Georgia, who can do distance healing amazingly. So he had done a session or two on her before we got using Aquaware, and we had seen a big improvement with her with that. So then I decided, well, let's do a meditation circle, and we'll use the Aquaware to program water with frequencies to enhance the meditation, and we'll be focusing on her healing. and then we'll program her water in her room, because by this time she was in a hospice and they had sent her off to die, even though she was getting better, which was pretty funny. And so we programmed the water with healing frequencies specific for her issues. And so I know in the meditation, we had 4 people in the meditation, and it was absolutely amazing. I've done quite a bit of meditation, but I could feel it was just much more powerful. And we were seeing things. We were seeing things in this meditation that explained why this disease had manifested. And so then when my wife wound up going the next day to see Judy, I actually haven't seen her since then, except I did see her today, but she was asleep, so I didn't wake her up and talk to her. But my wife told me that she had she had a spot in her back that apparently was where this had started, this cancer had started, and it had been bruised for months, many months. And so she told my wife that she noticed the bruise and the damage in her back was gone. And so, we don't know what all attributed to that, but it was there before we did Aquaware. So, so I've still yet to talk to her about it, but my feeling is that it's probably helped her immensely.
That's really cool. I want to just shift focus quickly, and I want to kind of talk about a new product I have coming out, and I want to do a live demonstration quickly. So we're going to I'm going to switch screens here, and I'm going to bring up what is known as the 12th Project 4.0. We're going to do 2 activations tonight live, folks. So if you want to go and get a couple glasses of water, this is going to be very, very cool. I'll give everybody a minute to go ahead and get them. So let me get the screen switched out here. Okay, so what we're looking at is a very early beta version of the 12th project. Now, the 12th project inception started in early 2009 when I started having an experience about why we were here and why we couldn't remember who we were. And the first 2 iterations of the 12th project centered around the 12 gods of Olympus. And the reason I used them was because people could very easily identify with them in the consciousness grid. Not that any of their power from the consciousness grid is actually working, but they were almost like cartoon characters, like the Bugs Bunny and whatever. Very easy to identify. And the premise behind the first virtual 12, and I call them virtual because these are all chakra-based gods, and the way the story rolled was, in my experience in early 2009, I needed to build something so people could remember why they were here and who they were. So I have told a story a number of different times about the world's leading anthropologist, and I'm not going to go into that because it'll take too long, but basically the gist of that story was, in order for him to, or her, to experience the life in all of its fullest, living with one of the tribes, the undiscovered tribes in the Amazon rain basin, was to be born into that society, live a lifetime as them, and then come back into the current reality and write a book, explaining his experience. Hence, we are all spirit energy living the human experience, right? So that's where the inception of the 12th Project came. These icons are meant, each one of the virtual 12 chakras opens up a virtual chakra outside the body. You typically use each one of these for 2 to 3 days, and what happens is you start to feel an energy field outside the body. That is the virtual chakra opening up. And within that chakra opening up are breadcrumbs that you left to remember who you are. And they come in the form of information, it comes in the form of gifts, it comes in many, many, many different forms. And over the years, as this particular piece has evolved, it's gotten more powerful. Now, the 12th Project 4.0, this is very early beta, so what you're looking at is going to change quite a bit, is way different than the 12th Project 3.0, which was actually 20 individual programs. It was a logistical nightmare to maintain and support, but at the time when it was released, the technology that I wanted was not available for me to create what you're seeing now. So that is really the story behind the Virtual 12. Now, when the third iteration came out, I added the 7 physical chakras, and this is really the 7 physical really put this product on the roadmap. For those of you that have listened to a lot of the workshops I've done, you'll know that I've done 2 very, very powerful chakra clearings workshops. Now, I used to do them individually with people. It was an 8-hour program that I offered, and it was north of $1,000. It was very expensive, but more importantly, it was very grueling to the person I was working with, because basically what we would do is we would start at the crown, and each day at the same time, at the same hour, I would drain that chakra energetically of all the good energy and all the bad energy. And by the time we got down to the root, you don't feel human anymore, because we're draining your life force on purpose each day at the same time for 7 days, and then on the 8th day we would fill you back up. Now, I've done 2 workshops since I stopped doing those, and they're on the website for purchase, and I've refined the technology and the methodology and the sacred geometry that goes with that to get it done, I think, in about 1 hour and 45 minutes to 2 hours and 15 minutes. But anyways, the 12th Project, when we put the physical 7 in there, it really opened up the doors so people can fine-tune their chakras. And again, the principles that govern all of my software is where you put your attention, the intention will go. These guys are designed to clear out the chakras and fill them back up. Okay, so we're going to do 2 activations tonight. The first one we're going to do is with Zeus. So again, this is the first time you're going to probably be seeing this live. I did a public beta last week. This has been very, very fine-tuned since then. Again, this is early beta 1. This product will be ready for market in October, so probably in the next 2 to 3 weeks we're going to be doing a debut of the final product, and of course we'll have a really good special before it hits the street. So again, the process by which this works is I'll count backwards, 3, 2, 1. Water preparation will run for 8.1 seconds. We are going to remove the programming and the structuring and the energy from the water. Then it's going to switch right over to water preparation. Is going to run for 8.1 seconds. It puts a thin veil in the water. When you drink it, it goes straight to the subconscious mind and it opens it up for acceptance. And then we're going to nucleate the water with that particular god. Okay, so if you want to go back and watch, the rerun of this, it's fine. It's as strong as we're doing it live now. I recommend you do it for 2 to 3 days and just keep your mind open. I want you to expect nothing but anticipate everything. Okay, so here we go. Where you put your attention, the intention will go. 3, 2, 1. We are now water prepping via Zeus. That's just making my skin crawl. This might be a little too powerful. We're now running user prep. And now we are nucleating the water with Zeus. This part runs for 18.1 seconds. Okay, I'd like all the listeners to go ahead and drink as much as you want. Again, just notice the taste and the texture of it. Beyond drinking it, there's nothing you really have to do. These just formulate by themselves within 2 to 3 days typically, and that information comes in many, many forms. I said sip it, Donna. Don't drink all of it. Okay, now we're going to switch over to the virtual 7, the physical 7, sorry. I like to use the crown. I just think it's really cool. It's the biggest chakra in the body. It breathes in the most energy and pushes out the most. I can use the heart chakra, but I don't want anybody crying during the call, so we're going to stick with the crown. The crown is really cool. Reports have come in with earlier versions of the software that people get a tightening around their forehead that goes above their ears to the base of their skull. It's like someone slipped a belt on and started tightening it down. It's a very discernible pressure, but it's not discomfort, and then it feels like the whole top of their head just blows off and like spaghetti strands come out and you're connected to everything in the universe. Everybody's experience is different with this, but no doubt it will deliver, and it's very, very cool. So, again, I will count backwards, 3, 2, 1, and we will nucleate the crown. Where your attention goes, the intention will go. 3, 2, 1. We are now water prepping the water. And again, folks, this is very, very early beta. This is going to undergo 3 more iterations and then the final product. So the final product will look very different. Now we are nucleating the crown. Where your attention goes, the intention will go. Okay, everyone go ahead and drink that as much as you want. Okay. Donna, how you doing? You're on mute. Donna, come back.
You always ask me questions, but I'm on mute.
Well, if you were paying attention, you would know you were on mute now, wouldn't you?
Like in your Facebook, I'm all over the place. You know what? The water is good.
Cool.
Yeah.
Ken.
Yes.
Please chime in.
Well, it's interesting. After taking a few sips of it, I felt the first time I felt heat throughout my body, and then the second time I felt my forehead warming up.
This is beta technology, meaning it's very, very unrefined. The final product, when it's done, will be really spectacular. So I didn't prep you for this, so I'm going to put you on the spot, Ken. We've got a lot of people listening to the call tonight, so clearly there's an interest in you as a person and your products, and that's a good thing because that makes us all popular at the same time. Do you have any gifts that you can share with the audience tonight? Can you run any piece of technology? Can you leverage something to help all of them or one of them?
Well, I'd say my gifts. One of my gifts is to be able to take in very complex ideas and explain them very simply to people.
Well, you're not going to do that while you're sitting on the toilet live, right?
No. No, not unless you want me to. And also, when I used to do individual consults, which I don't do anymore, I don't have time for it. But when I used to do consults, I would read people. You know, I don't read people's minds, but when I'm talking to somebody, like if I go to a party with my wife notices everything that people are wearing and all the details of their physical bodies or whatever. I notice what's going on inside, and I hear, when they're talking to me, I hear what's really going on within them. So it comes in very handy when you're doing any kind of consult with somebody, because you know the difference between what they're saying and what the truth is.
Okay, cool. Let me ask you a question. If I plug in the rest shield, can we direct that energy to everyone that's listening?
I don't see why not.
All right, excellent. I'll be right back 2 seconds. Donna, keep them busy.
Okay. You know, I was going to ask that question myself to say, hey, if we plug in the rest shield, can we all get that benefit? So, Ken, can you talk to us a little bit about that? While he plugs that in, can we get the benefit of that?
I would think so, because, you know, Peter, when I heard about Peter's software, immediately I understood how that could happen, and I thought, why didn't I think of that? You know, it's like, that's brilliant. And I used to be a computer programmer, so I was like, why did I never think of that? You know, we're living in this holographic universe. This whole 3D reality that we're in is composed of light that slows down and coagulates into this very solid reality that we're in. But, you know, behind the solidity of it all is just light energy. And so it's very much like the virtual reality on a computer. You know, when you're sitting in a computer and looking at the screen and you're interacting with this whole little virtual world, it's hard to remember that all it really is a bunch of plus and minus charges coming out of your wall that are being manipulated into this virtual reality. And so our 3D reality is the same kind of virtual reality. And so that's why the software can work. So yeah, you can take energy or a thought or whatever, and of course with human biology you can direct it and manipulate things at any distance. So why not be able to take software and do things with it, which is what Peter's done. And you take the intention, and intention is scalar energy. Our brain waves and our nervous systems are transmission systems for the scalar energy, what people call the biofield. It's scalar waves. So the software just directs the intent. So if a pyramid's putting off scalar waves, sure, why couldn't you take it and direct it with the software?
Well, we're gonna have you direct it. So I got it here. It's plugged in, and you have two options. One is power, and then you have a light option. I like putting the light on. It's kind of like a little night light. And whoop, there it goes. So as we speak, there's a yellow energy that's kind of flowing from this now, and I would like you, Ken, to plug in mentally into everyone that's on the call and direct it to them. And I mean, I feel it right now. It just goes right through you. It's an amazing device.
Okay.
Wait. Okay, you guys got to mute your mics.
Okay.
So, Ken,
Yes.
while you're doing that, I mean, what do we need to do? Do we need to just focus intention? What do we need to do while you're focusing on us?
I would say just envision me and the pyramid sending energy to you or receiving energy from them. It's pretty much that simple.
Perfect.
And I'll do the I'll envision everybody out there sending energy through the pyramid to them.
See, what I find very interesting is I don't need to close my eyes. I don't need to meditate. I don't need to do anything. When this thing is on, it's on, and you feel it. Donna, what's going on over there, man?
Well, you know, you talk about feeling the energy. And I felt like I wanted to, you know, like not close myself up, but definitely kind of like hold myself a little bit tighter because the energy was that powerful. You know, I could just feel it just kind of going up and down my body, and then it settled like around my my thigh, not my thighs, I guess my calves. So the energy's kind of settled there, and so yeah, I was really feeling that power. So and then I was thinking, okay, well, while he's focusing on us, let me focus on like my mom and Cassie, and let me focus on other people as well. So I was like kind of taking his energy and putting it back out there.
You see how it unlocks your mind to infinite potential?
Yes.
That is so cool. I've had a couple different experiences with it where I've just wanted to crawl up into a fetal position, and I don't meditate. I never had the need to meditate. I find it boring. My mind's always racing. I'm always running my mouth off, clearly. But this has actually slowed me down to a very cool state. And generally, when meditation, I don't know if it's a meditation technique, but what I'll use is when I'm racing, my mind is racing at night and I want to go to bed, I would typically open up my pineal gland and I start pouring into my consciousness colors that you cannot see with your eyes. They're just colors that come from wherever they come from, and they're so amazing. And I would start to paint them onto moving three-dimensional geometry. And before you know it, I'd be out like that. Now, what's cool about this is it makes that particular technique 10 times easier, meaning I can fall asleep 10 times faster, right? I don't know, Ken. What's going on with this thing, man? It's like the magic box.
Well, I think in that respect, I think the scalar waves that it puts out act as a carrier wave for our own scalar waves that we put out. You know, our brain waves, our thoughts. Because I've noticed when I first developed the first iteration, the stress shield device, I noticed all these synchronicities started happening, and I already had synchronicities happen in my life, but it just got ridiculous. And now I take it for granted. My whole house is surrounded with these pyramids, and I've got a gigantic one outside. And so I just take it for granted that I think about somebody and they call, or things just kind of fall in my lap. But people, our customers, notice that. We don't make that claim, on our product information, but people will email us and call us and tell us that they've noticed an increase in synchronicities in their life. So it seems to act as a carrier wave for our thoughts.
Yeah, I just find it mind-blowing, and again, I can't say enough about it. Can you let us know how people can get in touch with you, Ken?
Sure. My website is freshandalive.com, and all our contact information is there. My blog is freshandaliveblog.com, and that's where I post, YouTube videos and answer questions. I get about 200 emails a day, so I have to answer questions typically, as through groups and on YouTube. Also on Facebook. I'm on Facebook. My name is Ken Rohla, or you can just go to freshandalive.com. We've got links to it there. I'm also on Twitter.
Folks, we love questions, so get them posted, and I know there's a lot out there. So let's go ahead and get those. Ken, I want to switch gears and go back to your ET experience. Tell us about that. Tell us about the physical contact.
Okay.
Because before we do that, I've had my own experiences with ET before. I typically tend to shy away from them a little bit. I've had 4 experiences with them. The first one was the most mind-blowing. I knew that I wanted to go aboard a craft, and I knew exactly when it was going to happen and the night it was going to happen. And I was asleep, and then I just felt myself being ripped out of the bed, and the next thing I knew, I was waking up in the morning. But that experience of being ripped out of the bed was by far the most mind-blowing I've ever had. And then I see the energy all around me all the time, and I have seen them in corporeal and energetic form on a number of different times. Now, I've never seen them with human eyes, but in my experience, I know they're near because I sense them energetically. But even weirder is because they're so sterile, in my experience, when they do show up in physical form, instantly the whole room smells like a surgical, like a scrub room in a hospital. It's just very infant, like you ever smell a baby minutes after it's born? It's that type of sterile, that type of smell. So that's been, my experience with them. So over to you.
Well, I did have an experience when I was young, when I was a little kid, sounds like maybe similar to yours, where I remembered just a flash of waking up in the middle of the night and seeing a bright light outside of my bedroom window, and I was sharing a bunk bed with my brother who was on the bottom and I was on the top, and I just remember seeing silhouettes of two humanoid forms in the room, and that was it. I had that memory, and then I woke up out in the backyard. I was having this dream, this really bizarre, very vivid, colorful dream, and then I started feeling wet all over, which I didn't understand, and I wound up waking up, and I woke up. I was laying in the grass in the backyard, and I was wet from the dew on the grass, and I've never sleptwalked before or since, so I had that experience, and I got a lot of downloads in that. I don't know exactly what, but I just remember in this dream getting a whole lot of information downloaded to me, and I was probably 8 or 10 years old. But then when I encountered these reptilians, this was in the woods in North Carolina at this farm, and as I was saying, I didn't finish the story, but we dug out this spring and had this serpent mound coming up out of it, which was essentially a 65-foot long piece of organite, and it was made out of clay and dirt and all these crystals and artifacts. So years after this had been dug out, I was at a party there at this farm, and one of the guys there, who was also a computer programmer at the time, was trying to convince me to travel the world with him doing these computer programming jobs for the Illuminati, basically setting up foreign exchange systems to control currencies in countries. And I didn't know anything at all about the Illuminati back then. I didn't really care. I just didn't want to work with the crappy technology this guy wanted to work with. So he was trying to convince me. So he says, well, let's go down to the Serpent Mound and meditate. So we go down and we put our feet down in the water. And this is in a spring. And one of the things about spring water that makes it unique is it's very high in superconducting monoatomic minerals. And the best way to get these minerals into the body is topically. And when you do that, it plugs into the chakras, the acupuncture meridians, the brain neural pathways, and the DNA, and it raises the superconductivity, and it strengthens the mind-body connection. So I knew none of this. I was just hanging my feet in the water with him, and we're sitting there meditating. And by this time, I'd had quite a bit of contact internally, I guess you'd say telepathically, with these reptiles. And I had been asking them for a few years to meet me physically, and so they, whenever they would come in, they would say, "We are here." And so they came in and they said, "We are here," as I was meditating. I said, "Okay, what do you want?" And they started talking to me about some of the things they wanted me to do, and so I just said to the guy sitting next to me, I said, "You're not going to believe this, but I've got reptilian extraterrestrials talking to me in my head." And he said, "Yeah, they're talking to me too." And I said, "Oh, really?" And we compared notes, and it turns out they were talking to us both simultaneously, the same thing. And so I got back to my meditation. I said, "What do you want?" And they said, "We are here. Open your eyes." And so I opened my eyes, and there they were off in the distance, about 50 yards away. This was in a kind of a valley, and it was wooded, and it was in the evening, and it was dusk, and it was backlit by the setting sun dimly. And there were these three gigantic reptilian beings standing there. They were humanoid. The small one was about 12 feet high, and the large one was about 18 feet high. They were dark olive drab. They had scales all over, and they were slender but very muscular. They didn't have any clothes or genitalia. And I'm trying to grok this. I'm looking at this thinking, is somebody screwing with me? Is this a government mind control project? What's going on here? And the guy with me is trying to grok this. And I'm looking at them, and they're kind of moving and just swaying a little bit so I could see their features. And I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. It was like a science fiction cliche. They look kind of like a cross between the Gorn in the original Star Trek, which was a reptilian ET in the original Star Trek, and Mr. Worf. They had these three ridges coming down their head, going down across their nose. They had reptilian faces, and they had like these golden eyes with slitted, reptilian pupils, and they weren't threatening at all. But after about 2 minutes of this, and I realized, like, this is real, and I got terrified. And what they had told me was correct. I was absolutely, utterly terrified. It was completely illogical. It was completely instinctual. And I just said to the guy with me, let's get the hell out of here. And we ran back to the house. And so later that night, as I was going to sleep, they came in while I was falling asleep, and they said, and I said they came in telepathically and started talking to me, and they said, we told you your DNA was programmed to fear us. And I said, you're right, I don't ever want to see you again. And for a couple of years after that, I was terrified that I was going to be abducted. But ultimately, the rent still came due, and the car payment and everything, so I had to kind of keep living the 3D life and the fear passed, and eventually they kept giving me all kinds of downloads of information, which was really interesting, but it had no bearing on my life whatsoever at the time. They told me about monoatomic gold and how ETs used it for time travel and dimension travel and all this crazy stuff. And I was like, well, that's interesting, but so what? Now I understand why, because I'm using what they taught me to create technologies and solutions for healing us and protecting us against these really heinous threats that we have now against us. So that was kind of how the reptilian encounter went.
Yeah, there's a lot of misinformation out there about ET. There's a lot of misinformation about there. We're gonna start branching off from the normal healing stuff that we do each week into ET and some other cool stuff coming forward. So back to you. Can you share us or enlighten us with any new products that you've got on the drawing board, things that are coming out around the corner?
Well, some things I can't talk about because I've had...
Oh, come on. We're not under NDA. Get it out.
Oh, man. No, I've had... my wife and I've had to go into hiding over death threats and things. And I've had friends murdered, so I have to be careful about what I say. But I'll give you a few juicy ones. I will tell you that very quietly I am going around with other people around the world and doing some major things to benefit humanity. I'll just say that. But one of the things I'm working on right now is a little coil that you can hopefully buy in the near future for less than a couple $100 that will neutralize radioactivity in water. And it's basically a little toroidal coil. And what it does actually is it creates a black hole at the center of it. We've been taught that black holes are these things out in the galaxy that suck all light and matter and energy into them and crush it down to an infinitely small size. Well, that's not true. That's not what they are. And they're actually, the whole universe is a web of singularities of these black holes. And our bodies are also a web of them. And so you can actually create them. I've been with yogis actually who've created with their hands little black holes, and you can feel them suck in all the heat in the surrounding area because they're endothermic. So anyway, this coil makes a little black hole at its center, and singularities will neutralize radioactivity. And so that's one little simple device that will be coming out within the next year or so. I'm working on a new, more powerful stress shield device, which is a little portable device that I manufacture, which we don't have out right now. So that's a new and improved version coming out. I have one of my goals is to open source and give away to the world a circuit that will, if you build this thing correctly, it will clear chemtrails and nuclear fallout for a 75-mile radius. And I've already put in place, that's one that can get me into trouble. So I'm going to give that one away. But that that technology, actually, people can build it without even doing circuits. They can use pyramids to do the same thing, which is something that I teach. Or you can construct Organite, which is this material that if you build it right, will put out scalar waves that can do that as well.
So why do you use pyramids in your technology?
Well, pyramids, what they are an antenna that picks up this scalar energy from the center of the Earth and from our sun. When that energy comes flying out of the centers of galaxies and it's spiraling around and fractaling and branching, it's being relayed through the cosmos from the centers of suns outward through the galaxy, because suns and planets at their centers have a singularity, or this white hole black hole combination. It's like this interdimensional portal. So this energy is, this God consciousness is flowing through the cosmos, and it's relayed from sun to sun to sun outward through the cosmos, and it comes to us down from our sun and up from the center of the Earth, which is why you have these practices in Chinese medicine and Qigong, Ayurveda and such, where you bring energy up from the ground and down from below and work with the chakras, et cetera, et cetera. It's because the chakras and the acupuncture meridians in the body are actually deposits of superconducting minerals that create these black holes throughout the body. So they are channels for this energy. So a pyramid can do the same thing. You can build a pyramid, and it will capture this energy coming from the sun, capture it coming from the center of the Earth, and it will create a localized scalar field that can have beneficial effects to living organisms. And it can also, for example, neutralize radioactivity. It can clean up groundwater. It can break down toxins in groundwater, make it non-toxic. It can improve the weather by balancing the weather and getting rid of pollution. There was a Russian physicist named Alexander Golod who actually was a high-ranking military official who had a big multi-million-dollar budget. And when the Cold War ended back in the day, he had a budget to play around with. He started studying pyramids, built a large one outside of Moscow, about 144 feet high, and discovered that it would neutralize radioactivity in the atmosphere and in the ground for about a 350-kilometer diameter. It did all these mind-blowing things. It could heal disease of people that went inside of it. You could program crystals with it and give the crystal to somebody, and it would improve their health. It would, balance the weather. But the real kicker, the really interesting one, is that they noticed these flowers growing in the fields around the pyramid that no one had ever seen before, and so they got a botanist called in to examine the flowers and discovered that they've been extinct on Earth for 11 million years. So it can potentially bring back extinct species.
Jurassic Park all over again.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's a lot of really cool things you can do with pyramids. Practically speaking, in your own area, you can build, like I teach people how to do this, build little 6-inch pyramids, put about 5 to 7 of them out in your backyard, and that'll clear a 50-mile diameter of chemtrail pollution and nuclear fallout, and it will balance the weather because it pulls the pollution out of the atmosphere that short circuits the ionization of the atmosphere, and then you get normal weather for your area. See, storms and severe weather like hurricanes, tornadoes, lightning, stuff like that, that's nature's way of cleaning the atmosphere. And if the atmosphere is already clean, it doesn't need to do much of that. And so it just, when you see this happen in real life, like around Golod's pyramid, it stops earthquakes, it stops tornadoes, hurricanes, severe lightning storms, all of that. Severe winds, freezes, droughts, just goes away.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Let me ask you a question.
I was just going over to you, Donna, your mind reader.
I am. I'm like on fire over here. With questions, we do have some questions in the chat. We also, I have a question. So Ken, for like building pyramids, can we build them, Peter? Can we build them and to like clear energy around our own spaces?
Absolutely. You can build them and put them around your house or apartment to clear not only other people's energy, but also Wi-Fi, EMF of all kinds. Yeah, all of that. Absolutely. You can put yourself in a little bubble like the red shield does. It puts out a very strong shield, but you can build little passive devices that will do the same thing, to a lesser degree in your localized area, and you sleep better, you're less stressed, healing is accelerated, all kinds of things like that. Meditation's better. So absolutely you can.
Going back to your, Peter, can you hold up that pyramid again, the rest shield? So do we need like a rest shield, like would one be okay for like the entire home?
Well, depends on how big your house is, but we tell people that it reaches out.
Precious.
We tell people it reaches out in a 20-foot radius in every direction, and it passes through walls and material objects. Peter's seen it, and we know that it really reaches out 35, 40 feet radius, but to be conservative, some people are more sensitive than others, and so we figure within 20 feet people really notice it. So yeah, one of them typically, like an apartment, it would cover a whole apartment. In a larger house, you might need a couple of them.
Okay, very cool, very cool. People, again, freshandalive.com.
I also make a larger one that you can put outdoors.
Uh-huh.
That I can't tell all the things that it does, but it will cover an entire house as well, so it'll protect against EMF, and it'll get you into deep sleep and all that kind of stuff. And it also improves plant growth and water, all kinds of stuff.
And for health, and like for both me and my daughter, we both have rheumatoid arthritis. Would it also help in things like that?
Well, it reduces stress in the body and in the brain, and so it's going to help with healing. Rheumatoid arthritis is simply acidity and toxicity accumulation in tissue. So if you detox, you can get rid of that stuff very quickly. I've helped people get rid of rheumatoid arthritis within a week.
Cool.
It can happen quick.
Now, some of the questions, I don't want to be greedy here, and I know I was. So Chico says, Ken, my house and property is ridded with Higginbotham lines, and I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Higginbotham lines. Does your device offset that energy?
Yes, those are geopathic stress lines, and yes, it will neutralize geopathic stress zones. There are other ways to do it as well, but it definitely will.
And then some of the other questions we've had, we've got some folks in here. Islam says, I totally identified with Donna when Ken is sending Scalar World transmissions. Thank you. So some of the feedback, and also stating you guys rock. So lots of great comments in here. And I have to say, and I think Peter, we noticed that on these shows, it's kind of interesting that people sometimes they'll take full effect and really get in there with those questions. But I think when we have shows like this where it just kind of stumps people and they're just like, they're in awe, that it's hard for them to ask questions. So, folks, this is your time. We can't keep Ken all night, but definitely.
You don't really?
I know. If you have questions, this is the time.
Well, I can tell you some things that people can do themselves like this. Because my company is an empowerment company, and I like to teach people how to do these things themselves, so they don't have to depend on me or others. There's a material called Organite. You can Google that. It's ORGONITE. And honestly, 95% of it on the internet is junk, and because people don't understand the physics of how it works. But basically, if you study, there's a man named Carl Hans Wells. You study his work. He's the inventor of Organite. Study my work. I do all kinds of videos about it, and I also will be coming out with a DVD on my methods for making it. But you can just take fiberglass resin, some rock powders, some crystals, and some metal particles, not shavings, but fine particles. Put this stuff together in the right way and make pyramids or different things, and you can do things like clear chemtrails, You can structure water homeopathically and make it more healing. Although with Aquaware, I don't know why you'd even want to bother with that, but you can. Aquaware is much more sophisticated in that way. You can put it in your refrigerator. There's all kinds of things people have started doing with these things I never foresaw. I originally developed these discs to put underneath a fermentation bucket to improve the nutrient levels and to improve the creation of these monoatomic superconducting minerals. But people started doing things like putting them under their beds, putting them in their refrigerators, and so you can make things like this, and you can stick it in your fridge as long as it's non-toxic, and make your food last longer in your fridge. Or you can put it under your bed and sleep better, or put it next to you in your office and protect yourself from electromagnetic radiation. So that's one thing that people can do with these things. I also teach people how to make their own supplements using fermentation. What's that?
Get rid of bad breath with a pyramid? Just curious.
Well, bad breath is caused by pathogenic bacteria in the gut. So you might be able to. And I have noticed this.
I thought that was gas caused that. No?
Well, it's bad bacteria. If you think about it, like when something spoils and it smells bad, that's bad bacteria. That's pathogenic bacteria. When you ferment stuff, like beer or wine or kraut or something like that, it tends to have a pleasant smell, relatively speaking, because of the bacteria. It's the same thing in your guts. If your guts are rotting from eating toxic food and composting internally, then your breath is going to smell.
Ken, I want to put you on the spot. You mentioned something that was interesting to me. You alluded to being frightened earlier in the conversation. You said some people had been murdered. Your wife had to go into hiding, and there were certain things that you didn't want to talk about. I don't know if you said it or not because of fear. Now,
oh yeah,
I don't fear. I don't fear anything. I never, since my wake-up experience, fuck it. I'm here to do a job, and oops, I mean puck it. I mean whatever. But I'm here to do a job, and in my consciousness thinking, I've already helped a tremendous amount of people through what I do, and I don't fear death. I don't fear anything because I know that this is all a reality. But you alluded to it, but yet you are brimming with amazing energy. You're very well spoken, and you have all this you have a brilliant mind to create these amazing devices. So why does fear still play a part in your reality?
Well, when I was in the early 90s, I worked with a man named Ewell Brown who developed a water-fueled technology that not only could power everything on the planet non-toxically, but it could clean up all the pollution on the planet, and it could neutralize radioactivity. And I actually witnessed that done with a team of engineers and physicists and several Department of Energy officials. And so, and ultimately, these people were not fearful. They were very brave, but ultimately they did get killed, and some of my friends got poisoned and shot who worked with free energy. And what I've seen over and over again is that when you can talk about the problems all day long, you can point out, you can be a whistleblower and point out problems all day long, and usually you're not going to run into much trouble. But when you have a real solution, especially a technological solution to agendas and paradigms that the powers that be want to maintain, they get real serious with you real quick if they find out about it. And so when I've worked, I've been blessed to have been given a lot of solutions for things, and I've just seen over and over and over and over again friends of mine, and even now, people that are out creating solutions, most of them have realized that they've got to do it stealthily, and so I just fly below the radar. I still get it out, but I do it in a different way.
But in my belief system, when you're afraid of something, you're creating that path to that end, if you will.
Why don't you think like that?
Well, I'm still working on that.
It's a choice, right?
Right, right. Yeah, I can tell you I'm much less fearful than I used to be. And I've gotten more and more lessons to let go of that.
I always tell people, when you put your attention on an inevitable outcome, you're going to create that outcome, whether it's favorable or not. And I'm just curious because I let go of a lot of things a long time ago to get to where, this is all going. And it took a personal toll on me, and in my personal life, it took a huge toll on me. But, I told you on the phone the first time I helped somebody and truly made a difference in their life, it was like a drug unlike anything else, I've ever experienced, and that always propels us forward to do things. But what I'm trying to get at with you is I'm trying to understand your logic when it comes to fear. Like, you're an accomplished individual telling the world about an ET experience that you had. Me, I don't care anymore. I've let go of all that. I am who I am, and I don't hide it. But the fear factor, it really gripped me with you. I was kind of surprised that came out.
Well, when you have close friends get killed and murdered over this kind of stuff, it makes an impact, and it gets, it's not as easy. It's not as easy to let go of, at least for me, perhaps as somebody else. But over the years, I have become less and less fearful over it, and I am out talking on it, on the public airwaves. But it's still. And also recently I've had several friends who were attacked, had their businesses shut down, and were bankrupted for getting technologies out that could help the world. So it's not like it's something way back in the past. This stuff I still see around me going on, and I know that you attract your reality. I don't envision myself as that being an eventuality. I envision the eventuality as that I'm wildly successful, and that all of this stuff is out across the world, and that because I've already seen, I've been told this by these ETs, that all of this paradigm of control is going away, and all these technologies will get out. And so that's why I say I'm quietly going behind the scenes, solving problems now. I'm not waiting for anybody's permission or regulations or law changes or whatever. It's like I'm just freaking doing it, and that's the way it is. But I don't see any bad outcome coming out of it.
Cool.
I'm just I can't get on the 7 o'clock news and talk about it yet.
Oh, you mean the condition news?
Yeah.
Donna, what do we got going on over there?
Okay, so some questions and some statements in the chat in YouTube. So I've got Jim. Jim says, first I ever heard of this pyramid. What do you make it from, and how high should it be in the air? So, Ken, I don't know if that's something you want to offer, answer right now, or if it's something that we need to send him to your website.
Well, I can give it to you in a nutshell, but honestly, I'll come out with a DVD showing people how to make these pyramids that I'm talking about. You can make pyramids all kinds of ways. You could make a pyramid out of PVC pipe and plastic bathtub sheeting, believe it or not, and stick it out in your backyard, and it will do this. But there are things you can do easier than stronger. What I'm showing people how to do in my workshops is to take a little candle mold, a pyramid-shaped candle mold, about 6 inches at the base, and mix fiberglass resin, mix copper powder, mix brass powder, mix amethyst, quartz, selenite, kyanite. You can mix other rock powders like azomite, but basically volcanic rock powders and macrocrystals. Mix them all up in fiberglass resin and put one big selenite crystal down in the middle of it, pointing toward the tip of the pyramid, and you let it harden up, and that is a scalar wave transceiver. It picks up the scalar waves coming from the sun and the earth, and it'll create a localized field, and it will create a vortex of energy up through the tip that will go up into the sky, and if you get 5 to 7 of those together, it'll clear a 50-mile diameter of chemtrails. but you know, we don't have enough time to get into all the details of how to do that. I will have a DVD coming out on how to do that in the coming months. And if you watch my YouTube videos and things, you'll probably glean enough tips to do your own.
Perfect, perfect. And then Nico also, he says, Ken, I built little, I want to say, is it Organite generators? Okay. A crystal, a quartz crystal, silver dimes, and paper and resin. Are those legitimate?
Well, let me explain what creates the scalar waves in an Organite device. Okay, there's two effects. There's one called the Casimir effect, and that's when you get, if you take two plates of metal and you put them close together, like a 1/16 inch apart, it will generate electric charge, and it will also generate scalar waves. And the reason it does that is because we're in a virtual reality, and all this charge is bubbling into 3D all the time to create this reality. And open space has a perfect balance of plus and minus charge, and that's what makes space empty. So when you put two plates together, it throws the charge balance off, and that creates scalar waves. So just sticking two plates of metal close together generates scalar waves. So when you're making Organite, what most people do is they throw in metal shavings into the resin, and they just, you know, fall together closely, and you get enough surface area of those shavings next to each other to create the Casimir effect. You will exponentially increase the Casimir effect if instead of using shavings you use fine metal powders, which you can get on eBay, like powdered brass or powdered copper. You can also use, you know, ferrous metals with steel or iron or whatever. You can use magnetic materials like magnetized sand as well. Okay, that's one effect that creates the scalar waves. Then the other effect that creates the scalar waves is the piezoelectric effect. And typically, you know, what they teach the piezoelectric effect to be is when you strike a crystal, it will shoot out electricity. So, for example, on a gas grill, when you push that little red button that sparks the grill and fires it up, that's the piezoelectric effect. That little button is popping, it's mechanically hitting a piece of quartz that's connected to two wires, and that shoots out a spark. So that's what, you know, we're taught in school is the piezoelectric effect. But if instead of striking that crystal, if you just squeeze on it, it creates scalar waves. And so when you put these crystals in fiberglass resin or any resin that shrinks, which fiberglass does, it's squeezing on those crystals continually. Okay? So all you need is some volcanic minerals, mineral powders, and crystals, which are high in these superconducting minerals, these elements, these interdimensional elements, and these metal powders, and that'll generate scalar waves. And then to make, if you want to clear chemtrails, you take a large selenite wand, which massage therapists use. It looks like a pencil, but it's a crystal about 1 inch in diameter, and you just put that in the middle of your pyramid pointing up toward the tip, and surround it with all these, you know, metal powders and crystals in the resin, let it harden up. You make about 5 of those, stick them outside in your yard. It doesn't matter if it's on the ground or not. It's going to capture the scalar energy coming from the center of the Earth. It's coming all the time, and also from the sun, and it's going to create a localized field, and it's going to create these vortexes that go up into the atmosphere, and they're going to act like a vacuum cleaner. They're going to pull this stuff out into space. So you don't need to put paper, and you don't even need to put some people put spiral copper wires and things like that. You don't need to do any of that. You can. I mean, the copper wire, when you see people spiraling stuff in there, it's just a wave guide. You don't need to do that.
That's awesome. And so, folks, that DVD, and you might have to put a rush on that. Because, you know, people are extremely excited and very interested about that. Peter, I do have some comments in there where people are saying, Peter, you have this glow around you. You have this nice glow about you.
That's the magic of Google.
Yes, that is Google, folks. Okay, there was another one. Oh, Chico also wanted to know, excuse me, if he puts them out in the yard, he says he dips them in rainwater and then puts them in the yard on the full moon to charge them. Is that good?
Yeah, and if you put them in water, it'll make it rain.
Oh, come on, California, make it rain.
Oh, let me put it this way. There are people putting devices out in California that are making it rain and can stop the drought. That drought is being engineered. It's not by accident, and it can be stopped.
Question, and I know we really need to wrap this up, but here's my question, and it's definitely, I don't know if it's rhetorical or philosophical, or my thing is, why is it that, for both of you, why is it that with all this amazing technology, why do we have to go through such nonsense of engineering droughts, and I know the money is involved in this, but why do we got to go through this nonsense?
Well, it's just a game of consciousness. I mean, being here on this planet at this time is just a game of consciousness. You know, I was complaining one time about the Bush family to these reptilians, and they said something to me that changed my perspective. They said, well, actually, in your reality, it takes a higher level of consciousness to play the bad guy. And I went, ooh, I never thought about that. And so, you know, why do we have, you know, for example, dysfunctional parents that, you know, maybe don't raise us in the ideal way? Well, you learn a lot of lessons that way. So, you know, this planet is in an accelerated classroom right now, and, you know, I believe we choose to come here and experience it. So, and ultimately, too, I'm very optimistic. You know, it's like Peter, I don't see a bad outcome in the future. I think everything's going to just be hunky-dory, and we're going to look back and go, wow, man, that was an incredible game that we played. And, you know, it's going to be utopia, and I think within our lifetimes.
Okay, that was my next question. Can we get this in? Can I get this in my lifetime?
Well, I have been told by these reptilians that, of course, our time is probabilistic from our viewpoint, so you can't really predict where we're going, because we can have a shift in consciousness and everything changes quickly. But they did tell me years ago that we were already over the tipping point of self-destruction, that we were not going to self-destruct, and that everything was going to work out fine.
Awesome. Right on.
I have a very different view on that. I agree with the first part of what you said, but the second part about the destruction, that's inevitable, and it's coming. And, you know, I've always taught people that the world is very much a linear line, and in the middle is what we call the 0 point. And everything to the left of the 0 point is as the world as it is today: fear, loathing, envy, everything that's bad with it. And to the right of the 0 point is a loving world, or the way the world should have been from the beginning. And in order to pass through the 0 point, you have to unlearn everything you've learned for the real learning to begin, right? But there's multitudes of people like me and you that are waking up all the time, building stuff that just comes out of nowhere. And these are what I classify people that are awake. Now there's multiple classes of people that are awake, but don't make any mistake. There's a destruction coming. I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to take the people that are not awake and move them out of this consciousness grid. Maybe religion calls it the rapture. I don't know. But, you know, I know it's coming. When is it coming? I don't know. But I will tell you that on the other side of that, it is going to be a beautiful, loving world.
Well, I agree with that. It's already happening. I mean, all you have to do is look around and you see people self-destructing everywhere, hanging on to these old beliefs and the old paradigms. So I don't even think it's in the future. I think it's now. But that's exactly how I view it, is that the people who wake up and choose a different reality will have a positive, uplifting reality, and the ones that try to hang on to the old paradigm are going to self-destruct, and they will go by the wayside. So I agree with you there. I already see it. I mean, my whole family is self-destructing in that way.
Yeah, mine too. Donna, we got any more questions there?
You know, Chico wanted to know, do we leave them? Can you leave them in the water? Like pyramids, can you leave them in the water?
If you want it to rain.
So here's the deal, Chico. Definitely, first of all, folks, if you haven't clued into this, you need to subscribe to this channel. Number one. Number two, you need to definitely connect with both Peter and Ken, both on their Facebook pages, because they're doing some amazing things, and just lots of incredible things are coming from this, as you can see, both from Peter's software, Aquaware, the 12th project that is new, it's coming out, it's in beta form right now. Let me put a plug in for Aquaware. It is still 40% off for about the next 24 to 48 hours. I might be stretching a little bit, so you definitely need to take advantage of that. It's off 40 for 40% off, okay? So off 40 is the code. You'll want to go to moderndaymystic.com and check it out there. Please go to freshandalive.com. There's so many products on there. And of course, for me, the thing that I like the most is, Ken, I'm vegan, and so I like that you talk about...
Sorry.
Okay. I like that you talk about healthy foods and, you know, things like that. So that's awesome. And folks, you know, you can get all of that information because, I mean, the website speaks for itself, Fresh and Alive. But, you know, all of these products that are out there, both for Ken and for Peter, definitely check out their websites and then, you know, connect with them on the social media.
I got two things. This is kind of off topic, but I went on a celebrity date a few years ago, and she goes, I'm a vegan. I said, oh, I'm a Libra. She goes, no, you don't get it. She goes, I'm a vegetarian vegan. I said, yeah, I'm a meat-eating Libra, and I was like, oh. But Ken, I got an idea for you. This is brilliant. You talked about getting your best ideas when you're on the can. What about if you designed a can like an upside-down pyramid? Would that help?
Well, that was back in where I worked in the corporate environment. Actually, where I get my best ideas here is either in bed or on the couch. It's like, I don't know, there's two places that...
Awesome.
But I'll work on that. I'll work on that scalar energy toilet. That's an idea.
Can't give you ideas at the same time. Awesome, guys. Ken, thank you very, very much. Do you got anything you want to say to everybody before we shut it down?
Well, the main thing I usually leave people with is to truly understand and get that they create their reality. And, you know, when you really get that, then you do create an uplifting reality. I've been fortunate. I have not had any problems. Nobody has bothered me. I've had a few threats and things, but I'm just fine, and I'm not concerned at all about the future. Even if the world blew up in a ball of flames, I'd be on a flying saucer somewhere partying. And so, but, you know, we truly do create a reality. So, you know, if you encounter a problem, look for the solution. They're already out there, and they always will be.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Donna, Ken, thank you guys very, very much, and ladies, guy and lady. Tonight was a very, very good show. Hopefully people got some good information out there.
Well, you know, folks, it's always recorded live, so immediately after we turn off this broadcast, you can go back. You know, I find that you get more out of it if you keep coming back, especially to the channel, and watching the shows over and over and over again. Sometimes it helps you to digest it a little bit better. So definitely keep doing that. Let's say good night, folks.
All right.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Oh, we'll see you next Sunday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. We have Eric Hunter. Eric Hunter is going to come talk to us about pendulum healings. And I already got my look. I got my pendulum.
Why aren't they using like the 17th century to slowly cut people in half?
What?
Was that
anyhow, look, there's my pendulum. So we're going to talk to Eric about that. It'll be next Sunday night. We'll see you guys here. Modern Day Mystic channel on YouTube. All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Night.
Night. Night, John Boy.
We're still alive.
Good night.